Hello, good evening, and warm welcome at the Thinking Palette platform. This is the Test-3 discussion of GS Paper 2 of our hand-holding program. This discussion is entirely based on my experience where I got 75 marks in 2013 and what strategy I have adopted so that I have secured 121 marks in 2018. So basically this discussion is more about that how you can increase your marks and what content should be placed, and more importantly that where it should be placed and how it should be placed. So start with the first question of the test 3, that is the vision of New India by 2022 hinges on responsive and effective government of which grievance redressal mechanism is a significant requirement. Highlight the effectiveness of grievance redressal mechanism in India. Basically, this question lies here that you will have to highlight the grievance redressal mechanism and what is its effectiveness. But before knowing the effectiveness or before mentioning the effectiveness, you must be aware of the philosophy of grievance redressal mechanism. So we will look into that what is grievance redressal mechanism, why grievance redressal mechanism, and what are the different mechanism for the grievance redressal, and then we will highlight the effectiveness. So basically this is the demand of the question, and this basic information must be in your answer. As the question is a 15 marker, so we are talking about why and what are the different mechanism. If it would have been asked in 10 marker question, then we can escape this part and entirely focusing on effectiveness after mentioning what is grievance redressal. So now coming to that what should be our approach. First of all, you will give your introduction. Then I will advise you that in any question of the governance, try to put some of the keywords. For example, minimum government, maximum governance, sabka saath, sabka vikas, new India, transformative India, transformative India. These are the different keywords which you can use in your introduction on the question related to governance. So basically in this question, introduction can be the public redress of grievance is a cornerstone of minimum government and maximum governance, and it is a key aspect of the idea of New India by 2022. This can be given in your introduction. After that, you will have to understand that what is the importance of grievance redressal. So the first importance is that it will create the trust between government and citizens. Second is operational efficiency and the proficiency of any organization will also be increased. Third is functioning of the officer or the officials will improve, and it will infuse transparency and accountability in the governance. And you can also say that grievance, whenever there is a grievance against any policy of the government, when any scheme of the government, when any project of the government, then basically the shortcomings in the policy, scheme and project must be sought out. And this will be done only after when the citizen will give their feedback on this particular aspect. So basically this is the importance of grievance redressal. Now we will move to the next part of this, that is what are the tools available for the grievance redressal mechanism in India. So now tools, here again we can divide our answer like this. First, what are the different nodal agencies for the grievance redressal? There are two nodal agencies. First is under the Ministry of Personnel, and the name is Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievance. Likewise, the another nodal agency is Directorate of Public Grievance, Directorate of Public Grievance in Cabinet Secretariat. Okay. Second is we are now moving into the era of e-governance. Therefore, we have mygov.in where you can put your grievance. We have Umang app where the services related to 16 different ministries are provided, and you can also upload your grievance here. Then you can talk about the Ombudsman in India. Ombudsman. You might have heard about the banking ombudsman, insurance ombudsman, taxation related ombudsman. So basically, whenever there is any grievance with respect to banking, insurance, taxation, you can directly lodge your complaint in the respective ombudsman. And the last, that is non-institutional form, but it is too much important despite being the informal way of grievance redressal, that is the Janta Darbar of CM. By the different CMs, Janta Darbar is organized on a particular day of the week, and the CM looks after the different grievances given by the citizens in their Janta Darbar and try to resolve the matter. Okay, you might have seen that it is much more prominent in Jharkhand, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, everywhere the Janta Darbar is being organized. Understood? Now, we will have to highlight the effectiveness. After putting this, effectiveness simply means that you will have to highlight that what has been the achievement in the field of public grievance redressal and what are the challenges in the public grievance redressal. First of all, I will talk about that what has been the success of the grievance redressal. In this, I can give you some of the good initiatives taken by different states so that you can understand that the success has been uneven. In some of the states, the grievance redressal has been much more pronounced, but it is not the case that is with all the states. So now, I can give the example of e-Pariharan. I can give the example of AP Online. I can give the example of Lokwani in UP, e-Parihar, Kerala. AP Online, the name itself says that it is of Andhra. Then you can also talk about C-Box. Then you can talk about in most of the states, there is Public Service Guarantee Act. Public Service Guarantee Act. Okay. Then in Tamil Nadu, we have Manu Nidhi Titham. Manu Nidhi Titham. So basically what happens in Manu Nidhi Titham in Tamil Nadu, that one day in a month is allotted for looking after the grievance redressal of the citizen. Likewise, in Lokwani in UP, your grievance must be redressed within 15 days. Likewise, in e-Pariharan and AP Online, you can lodge your complaints online. C-Box, you all know that the Ministry of Women and Child Development, in the context of rising violence against the women and the sexual harassment at the workplace, the C-Box has been installed where they can directly put their grievance. And Department of Administrative Reforms and the Public Grievance itself has stated that we received 10 lakhs of the grievances per year and we have solved 95% of the case. So basically, the picture of 95% depicts that we are much more efficient in the terms of grievance redressal. But now we will have to look into the darker side, or you can say the challenges with the grievance redressal, that whether we are just disposing the cases for the sake of disposal of cases or whether we have disposed in a real sense. But for that, we will have to highlight the other challenges with the grievance redressal also. So now coming to the challenges with the grievance redressal. Now, if I will have to talk in very general term, then I find that there are three different problems for the grievance redressal. That is awareness. Second is accessibility. Third is unsolved cases. Now, you will understand. First of all, we don't know or we are not aware that where to lodge complaints. Okay, for example, any teacher is not teaching you well, so you are not aware that where you will lodge the complaint against that teacher, whether to go to the higher authority of the management or whether to go to the senior teachers of the organization. Now, even when you know that okay, he or she is the authority where I can make a complaint against my teacher, then there is a problem of accessibility because बड़े teacher मिलते नहीं हैं, management के बड़े लोग तुम्हें मिलेंगे नहीं आसानी से. Okay, now even when you are accessible or even when you can talk to that particular authority, then there is a higher chance that your problem will be unsolved. Why? कोई टेंशन नहीं लेना चाहता है तुम्हारे लिए. Okay, so basically this is the threefold problem with the grievance redressal mechanism. Now, to handle such problem, we have the internet-based centralized public grievance redress and monitoring system, that is CP-GRAMS. That is centralized public grievance redressal and monitoring system. But now there is another problem with this CP-GRAM. We have just talked about that this is an internet-based system. So we all know about the issue of rural connectivity. Now, a smart student will do what they will do, or what they do is that they will put the idea of national optical fiber network, and just they will put one statement that the target of the national optical fiber network has been missed twice. Now, just by placing this, the examiner will understand that you are substantiating your point with respect to rural connectivity. Then there is a lack of training of the officers who are dealing with such complaints. Then there is an approach that, for example, X and Y, these are the two departments. Okay. When you have sent your grievance to the department X, then department X will say that the matter is related to department Y, and in this way the matter has been resolved by X department. So now 95% of the disposal is just because they are telling that this is not my case, or this is not in my backyard, go to the department Y. Now again you will have to resolve, or now again you will have to lodge your redress or your grievance for the redressal. So basically this is happening, that approach to the another agency, this is not related to my department, and you are telling that the matter has been disposed, but in reality it has not been disposed, it has been just moved from one shoulder to another shoulder. Okay. Now, in most of the cases, service has been delivered to the private party. Now, how you can ensure the accountability of the private party when the government itself has subcontracted or contracted the services to the private party? So now basically to ensure the accountability of such private party is a matter of concern. And then we can talk about, then there is an issue of overlapping jurisdiction. Overlapping jurisdiction, why it happens? Overlapping jurisdiction happens because of non-clarity of the rules, regulation and the process. And when there is an overlapping jurisdiction, obviously the department will send the grievance from one department to another department, and ultimately your grievance will not be resolved. Okay. But yeah, CP-GRAM is a very good initiative. But we all don't know about the CP-GRAM. Most of the aspirants even don't know about the CP-GRAM. Even if I would have not prepared for the civil services, and even I have not teaching for the last 2 years, then I may not be able to understand that what's happening in the area of CPA, in the area of grievance redressal. So this is the height of unawareness of the common people. Okay. Now, this is a 15 marker question. So basically you must give certain suggestions with respect to the grievance redressal. Now what you can do, the suggestions you can say that we can devote any day in a week for grievance redressal in all the departments. Okay. Then we can have the complaint box in each department, and there must be one nodal officer who will open this box and will send the grievance to the higher authority. Then we have talked about that the people are unaware. So basically what we can do, that we can have the booklets and pamphlets, and in this booklets and pamphlets we must notify the procedure. We must notify the procedure of grievance redressal. Okay. Now we can also say that the sectoral regulators, for just I am giving an example, for the dispute related to consumer rights, there is a dispute redressal agencies under Consumer Protection Act. So sectoral regulator means the regulator who is regulating a particular service area must have the framework to redress the grievances, so that the grievance will not move from one department to another department. So this suggestion you can give, and in conclusion just you can talk about that grievance redressal should not be seen as a burden but as an opportunity for effective and efficient governance according to the 8 pillars of the World Bank. Now whenever you are talking about that the 8 pillars of the World Bank basically, or you can also say that we can think of effective and efficient governance as per the recommendation of second ARC. So basically this will give weightage to your answer. Okay, so now we are moving to question number 2. The dispute settlement body of WTO has a structural and functional weakness which has major implication on fair and free trade. Also discuss India's position with USA on solar panel dispute. Okay, so now you will have to understand that why this question has been asked. This question has been asked because it has not been in the news for a month or 2 months, but it has been in the news for 10 to 15 days continuously. And UPSC has a habit of asking question which has been in the news but has not turned into the hot topic. So I have picked this question. And also the some current things have happened with respect to the dispute settlement body. So it is very important and there is a high probability that it can be asked in examination, because UPSC is also asking for the last 2 or 3 years with respect to the structure of any UN body. Okay, so now what is the basic information which is required in this answer? You must be aware of the dispute settlement body, that is the structure of WTO dispute settlement body. After understanding the structure, then you can highlight, then only you can highlight that what is a structural and functional weakness in this dispute settlement body. And then this is the second part where you must be aware of the recent cases where India won against USA in solar dispute. But I have asked the question with respect to the background related to the solar panel dispute, as it is a 15 marker question. So at least you can say that the 5 marks have been at least been allotted to this part, 10 part to this part. So obviously in this way you can divide your answer giving more weightage to this part and equal weightage in proportion to the marks allotted to the second part. Understood? Now moving to the dispute settlement body. First of all, dispute settlement body, what this body does. This body basically maintain the surveillance of the trade between the countries. Second is, this is the body that authorizes the suspension of concession and obligation given to the member countries. Now there are other 2 things that dispute settlement body does, but before knowing that we will move into that what is the structure and will relate it to the functioning of dispute settlement body. So now the structure is simply that ministerial conference, and this general council convenes as dispute settlement body to deal with dispute between the WTO members. Okay, so now basically this general council is dispute settlement body whenever it is looking into the dispute between the members. Now when the members will approach to dispute settlement body that please establish a panel to settle the dispute, then dispute settlement body will establish a panel, and this panel is basically after the directions given by this panel, the matter will go to the appellate body. Okay, and this appellate body will give the reports to dispute settlement body. So now we can say that dispute settlement body has one function, that is establishment of panel. Understood? Establishment of panel. Second is to adopt the report of appellate body. Understood? Okay, so now this is basically a structure and this is the function of the dispute settlement body. So now one thing I am adding here is that appellate body consists of 7 members, but today there is only 3 members. This is the functional weakness. Why there is a 3 member? Why there is a 3-member? Because new appointment and the reappointment of the members who have completed their 4 year of tenure is not being done. Why the appointment and reappointment is not being done? It is not being done because USA has blocked, and this is the functional weakness. Functional weakness simply means that it has been hijacked by US. Understood? And what is the implication of this? Recently, there was a dispute between India and Japan with respect to the tariffs on iron and steel products. Then, dispute settlement body has said that though we lack in the terms of staff, so we cannot entertain any appeal in the dispute between India and Japan. This is the implication which you can give in your answer. But this is a functional weakness. Okay. So now we are moving to the broad term, that is the structural weakness in dispute settlement body. So what is the structural weakness? Now, to understand the structural weakness, we will have to understand the concept of positive consensus. Positive consensus. What is this? इतना ही समझो. मान लो A and B are in dispute. Understood? So, there should not be any objection either from A or from B. Okay? Both should agree that the matter should be referred to dispute settlement body and appellate body, and we will abide by the decision. Okay, so it simply means that there should not be any objection from any contracting party to the decision. That is the positive consensus. Understood? ये होना थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है, ऐसा नहीं है कि दोनों रेडी हो जाएंगे. You can understand the practicality of this positive consensus. Now, the second thing which happens is parties at the dispute were not excluded. This party A and B are not excluded from participation in decision making process. Are not excluded. Now you can understand the biasness, probability of biasness when the party at the dispute are not excluded. In other words, we can also say that the respondent of the dispute, for example, A is respondent of the dispute may block the establishment of panel, because just I have talked about that there should be positive consensus. Both the parties must be ready. So therefore, if one party is not ready, then he may block the establishment of panel. And when the establishment of panel is not being done, then what is the utility of dispute settlement body? Okay, understood? Now, moving to the second point with respect to the structural weakness. Now, whenever you can use it in the functional weakness also. I am just giving you point. I will look into that how you have divided your answer into a structural and functional weakness differently. Okay, so just now we have talked about the 3 or 4 or 5 different points. The first point was related to member of the appellate body. Second point was related to US as hijack. Third point has related to positive consensus. Fourth point has been related to establishment of panel. Now we are moving to fifth point. This fifth point is related to time-taking process. Normally, whenever the dispute goes to the dispute settlement body, it takes 30 months. Okay, and 30 months from when? 30 months from dispute settlement process started. Okay, dispute settlement process started. अब तुम समझ सकते हो कि how much it is time taking, and it has also has an economic cost. Understood? Now, the sixth problem is that winning party, for example, I'm just giving you an example, that there is a dispute between developed and developing country. And in this case, any party wins, just hypothesis that the developing parties or the developing country has won. Now, this developing countries will not get any kind of reimbursement for legal expenses from this developed country. No legal expense. no legal expense reimbursement from the developed country to developing and developing countries to the developed country. This is the another structural weakness. Understood? And also, this developing countries will have to take the assistance of the law firm of major developed country, which asks for heavy fees. Okay, because the developing country does not have the domestic legal capability to handle the dispute settlement process in the WTO. Understood? So they depend on the law firms of this developed country, and this developed country are charging high fees from them. Okay, and now the last and very important point is, what will be the decision, or what has been the decision of dispute settlement body in the last 2 decades? Whenever you will analyze this, then there are only two kinds of remedy that have been given by the dispute settlement body. So what are the two kinds of remedy? First is to give money or amount involved in the case, and second is to retaliate against the country. To retaliate against the country. ओके जैसे उसने किया वैसे तुम कर दो, मतलब टीट फॉर टैट. ओके, टू रिटेलिएट अगेंस्ट द कंट्री. कभी क्या होता है कि डिस्प्यूट सेटलमेंट बॉडी फिक्सेस that you will have to give certain amount to that particular country because you have deviated from the principles of WTO. कभी क्या होता है कि वो बोल देते हैं दूसरे कंट्री को कि तुम भी वही कर लो जो उसने किया है. Now you can understand that how the developing countries can retaliate against the developed country. Because of the economic and the political calculations, they cannot retaliate against the developed country. This is the structural weakness. Now we are moving into Indo-US solar dispute. That what was the issue that is between India and US with respect to solar dispute. So now for that we will have to go into little bit of history. That is, in 2011, government has started National Solar Mission. And the goal of the National Solar Mission was to make India a world leader in renewable energy. A world leader in renewable energy. And for that, the program was focusing upon indigenization of domestic renewable energy sector by producing domestic solar panels. Okay, so now US have alleged that the India is basically giving a discriminatory treatment to the non-domestic solar panel. Non-domestic solar panel के अगेंस्ट है अपना डोमेस्टिक सोलर पैनल को प्रोड्यूस और एस्टैब्लिश करना. ओके, एंड they are also making, or they are also accusing India of providing subsidies to the domestic solar panel industry inconsistent with the WTO norms. Okay, and they were also telling that India is giving subsidy to their domestic producer. इतना इंडिया के पास होता तो फिर दिक्कत ही क्या होता. Okay, India is providing subsidies to the domestic producer. So now the case went to dispute settlement body in 2016 and India lost the case. Okay, now what happened in 2018, that India moved against the state of California, Michigan, Montana. India moved in the dispute settlement body against California, Michigan, Montana, accusing them of similar discrimination and subsidy support to their domestic manufacturer. And this time, India wins the case. Okay, this is the thing which you need to mention in your answer. But again, this is a 15-marker question, so you must give certain suggestions in this question. So what can be the suggestion for the dispute settlement body? First of all, developing countries should enhance their domestic legal capability. Domestic legal capability. Okay. Second is developing countries must get the reimbursement of legal expenses in case the dispute between the developing and developed countries has been won by developing countries. Third is, there should be a mechanism of joint retaliation by all the developing countries, because just we have talked about that the developing countries cannot go for the unilateral retaliation. So there should be joint retaliation by all the developing countries against a developed country. So this suggestion you can give in your answer. So now moving to question number third. Indo-US relation have found many reasons for strategic convergence. However, the relation is fraught with numerous divergences. This question is very simple. Just you will have to highlight that what are the different areas or what are the different mechanisms through which you can establish your answer that there is a strategic convergence. After that, you will have to just highlight the issues with Indo-US relation. This is a very open-ended part. All the issues which you know with respect to Indo-US relation, you can easily put down here. And in convergence, strategic convergence, you need to be little bit specific. Okay, so now Indo-US relation, how you can introduce Indo-US relation? You can easily say that Indo-US bilateral relation have developed into global strategic partnership, because the question is using the word strategic. So you can say India-US bilateral relation have developed into global strategic partnership based on shared democratic values and increasing convergence of interests on bilateral, regional, and global issues. Understood? Okay. You can also say that in the first two summit of the President Obama and Mr. Modi, the summit has said that chale saath saath, forward together we go. This was the ethos of forward together we go. This is the ethos of Indo-US relation. You can also use that from a strange democracy we are entering into the phase of engaging democracy. This can also be used in introduction. Introduction can be of numerous type depending on the keywords or the striking line which you know can be put in your introduction. After that, strategic convergence. Strategic convergence we can see in the terms of Indo-Pacific. It is not only in the terms of Indo-Pacific, but India and US is coming closer because USA wants to challenge the China in its quest for being the assertive power and giving challenge to the American hegemony. Okay, so basically this type of word can be used. After that, you can talk about that what are the areas of strategic convergence and how the different institutions have been established for strategic convergence and what are the different agreements have been signed. Okay, so institutional arrangement, you can simply talk about 2+2 ministerial dialogue. This is the highest level of institutional arrangement for strategic convergence between India and USA. Then you can talk about the different kinds of major agreements. Without that, your answer is inadequate or partially addressed. So you must be aware about LEMUA, that is Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. Then you can talk about SISMOA. Then you can talk about General Security of Military Information Agreement. General Security of Military Information Agreement. Then Basic Exchange Cooperation Agreement. Okay. Now, LEMUA, you all know that this facilitates access to designated military facilities on either side for the purpose of refueling. SISMOA, it is nothing but just the transfer of highly sensitive communication security, highly sensitive communication related to security from USA to India. GSMIA, that is General Security of Military Information Agreement. This is just a sharing of intelligence. Bilateral, Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement to share geospatial and satellite data. These are the basically strategic convergence. You can also talk about defense technology trade initiative and can highlight some of the defense agreements with USA. This is the things which you need to highlight in your answer. After that, it is very simple part that what is the issue with respect to Indo-US relation. So just I am highlighting the points which should be in your answer. First of all, you can obviously talk about WTO solar dispute issue. Then you can talk about H1B visa issue. Then you can talk about that USA has terminated India from generalized system of preferences scheme. Then the two sides differ on to how to balance the IP protection, that is intellectual property issue between India and USA. Then the data localization issue. Basically, USA says that India's new restrictive localization rule for certain financial data flow affects the companies like Visa and MasterCard. These are the issues which you can highlight in your answer. Then you can also talk about the changing equation of USA with Pakistan. So we cannot rely on USA completely. Sometimes the national security document of USA termed Pakistan as a place from where the terrorist breeding ground, the national security document says. But recently, the USA-Afghan deal, this time we have observed the softened position of USA on Pakistan because they have understood the importance of Pakistan in case of Afghanistan resolution process. So basically, we cannot trust the USA completely. These are the things which you can give in your answer. Okay. Now after that, the conclusion part. In conclusion, you can simply say that Indo-US relation is critical for the shaping of world order in the 21st century. In order to realize the potential of relation, the two countries must come together to complete the unfinished agreement and set for the course for comprehensive strategic global partnership. Okay, whenever you are putting such keywords which are very much frequently used in the international relation, like comprehensive strategic global partnership, then relationship is critical for the new world order of the 21st century. It obviously gives an added advantage to your answer. And if the examiner gets happy with such kind of question, then there is likely chance that he will give you 0.5 or 1 marks more than the other aspirants. And the game is entirely of 0.5 or 1 marks in each and every question. It will come around 10 to 15 marks in the total average. So it matters a lot. Okay. Now, the next question, that is BRICS was started with the basic objective of bringing reforms in the multilateral institution. Make an assessment of its functioning since its inception. You all know that always the narrative of the BRICS is to reform the WTO, IMF. If you will not reform WTO and IMF, then we will bring our entire financial architecture for South-South cooperation. These are the things based on which the BRICS was established. But before that, basic information that you can give in your answer with respect to, if you know the data related to BRICS, that how they are performing in the terms of trade, what is the percentage in the global GDP, what is the objective of the BRICS. If you know this, then it will be very easy for you to start your answer. Okay. After that, in assessment, we will talk about that how it has performed politically and economically. Then assessment simply means we will have to highlight the shortcomings in the BRICS also, because in assessment can be made only when you are highlighting some of the success and some of the failures and the challenges with respect to any institution, any organization, any body. Okay, so now moving to the demand of the question, what you can do, that you can start your answer that the acronym of the BRICS was given by economist Jim O'Neill of Goldman Sachs. It is not required, just you can put Jim O'Neill. Okay, and these five nations account for 42% of world population, 23% of global GDP, and 17% of world trade. With the basic objective, ऐसे कर लो, with the basic objective, now write it down, to deepen and intensify cooperation based on equity and sustainability. Then you can talk about the relation is built on country's economic strength. Then you can talk about objective is to form new political diplomatic entity with diverse objective. These are the things which you can put in your introduction. As this is a 15 marker question, I am giving you the leverage of placing the things like this after mentioning the data related to BRICS. Now, we will look into that what has been the success in terms of political parameters and economic parameters. Now, political parameters. Here you can say that BRICS is utilized as a driver for South African foreign policy, because through the BRICS we are furthering our agenda of development in Africa and South-South cooperation. South-South cooperation. Okay. Then you can also talk about that the BRICS has the political arrangement of BRICS outreach dialogue. What happens in this dialogue? That we aim at involving regional neighbor of the host country in BRICS activities. Involving regional neighbor of host country in BRICS activities. Okay, this is the political assessment of the BRICS. Now moving to economic assessment, which is very much important for addressing this question. Actually, this question is entirely asking about that, but though it is a 15 marker, so I have talked about the political cooperation also. So now in the terms of assessment, in the terms of economic parameters, we can talk about the establishment of National Development Bank, then contingency reserve, then contingency reserve requirement, then you can say BRICS cryptocurrency. Okay, these are the achievements in the terms of economic aspect of the BRICS. Now today, whenever you will analyze, then you will find that NDP works through new relationship, new project, and new approach. These are the basic elements of new development bank. What is the new relation? New relation is based on the needs of individual country. New project is, it is the sustainable infra development project is the core of NDB. New approach, risk-based approach for project approval. And whenever you will look into the success of National Development New Development Bank, then you will find that they are doing 44 projects worth of 12.4 million US dollar in just 5 years. Okay, and contingency reserve requirement, this aims to provide short-term liquidity support to the member through currency swap and This is a corpus of 100 billion US dollar. Understood? This is the assessment. But this is the partial assessment where you are talking about the success of the BRICS, and you will also have to highlight the recent declaration, that is Brasilia Declaration. Because this is a recent one, so I am advising you to put this Brasilia Declaration. In this declaration, the leaders have talked about that how we can reform multilateralism, or how we can have the new multilateral order. And Russia have proposed for BRICS Energy Research Platform. Energy Research Platform. Then they have also talked about that we should come with local currency bond fund. Understood? So these are the things which you can mention. After that, I am moving into the challenges and the issue with the BRICS. What is the issue with the BRICS? First issue, whenever I am giving the data, I have said that 40% or 42% of the world population is in the BRICS nation. But despite of this 40%, only 15% of the world trade happens between the BRICS nation. Understood? And another thing which you can observe is disparity. Disparity simply means that China alone accounts for 38% of total export to the BRICS. Total export to the BRICS nation. Third, from the start or from the inception of the BRICS, they have talked about, or they have set the lofty declaration for reform in multilateral institution. But even today, they have not succeeded to bring even a single reform in these multilateral institutions. Then you can talk about that all the countries have a very different perception with respect to UNSC reforms. China thinks that if India will come into the UN or UNSC as a permanent member, Pakistan should also come. Russia supports India, but it is not a very frequent support. So in this way, all have a very different understanding of the reforms at the UNSC. Then BRICS nation basically compete with themselves. Okay, they compete from cloth to aircraft. The sale of cloth to aircraft is in the competitive mode amongst the BRICS nation. Then how you can think of the deepening of the economic trade when the countries, all the countries are producing all the things? Okay, तो कहाँ बेचने जाएंगे? मैं बेचने जाऊं उसको क्लोथ, तो वो बोलेगा मैं तो अपने बना रहा हूं. So these are the things which you can mention in your answer. Now you can in the conclusion say that BRICS must reaffirm their commitment to a multipolar world and should build on the success of new development bank and invest in additional BRICS institutions. This can be your conclusion. Understood? Now, why I am talking about NDB in your conclusion? Because this is the most significant achievement of the BRICS. Okay. Now moving to the next question, that India-China border dispute is more of perception and less of a strategic calculation. देखो कभी कभी क्या होता है क्वेश्चन में कि तुम्हारी मर्जी है, जैसे इस क्वेश्चन में तुम्हारी मर्जी है. कैसे? तुम ये बोल सकते हो यस इट इज ऑफ मोर ऑफ परसेप्शन बट इट इज ऑल्सो ऑफ स्ट्रेटेजिक कैलकुलेशन. ये तुम्हारे ऊपर है. तुम क्वेश्चन को डिफाई भी कर सकते हो अगर तुम्हारे अंदर वो बात है. तो तुम्हें लगता है कि अगर मैं इसके अगेंस्ट जाऊंगा और मैं ऐसे पॉइंट दे सकता हूं जो जस्टिफाई भी है, तो यू कैन गो. ओके, बताऊंगा मैं कैसे हो सकता है ये. ओके, बट ओके, दिस क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग अबाउट परसेप्शन. परसेप्शन मीन्स सिंपली that you must be aware of the historical facts related to border at eastern sector and also at western sector. So the philosophy of the question is that you must be aware about the border dispute at eastern sector, middle sector and western sector. And in this question I am advising you to use map. Okay, this use of the map will increase your marks by at least 1 marks. Now moving to, it is more of perception. Whenever you are mentioning it is of perception, it simply means that you will have to highlight that how it is perception at the eastern sector and at the western sector. Okay, so now first coming to this region where Aksai Chin, up to Galwan Valley, Chumang region, Pangsong Lake, everywhere there is a threat. Okay, so but we will look into that. What's the issue with respect to Aksai Chin? Why there is a perception that the LAC passes through north of the Laptangseng region, north of the Aksai? India says that the LAC extends from north of the Karakoram and extends to the Kulun range, and thus encompassing Aksai Chin region into the India, and China have a very different perception. अब तो वो कहते हैं गलवान भी उनका है. Okay, so this is a matter of perception. They don't understand that where LAC starts or where LAC ends, and even they know that where LAC stands or starts, they have a perception that we will have to continue the border dispute because it is of a historical fact. Okay, so now what happened in the western sector is that we would have to look into two line, that is Johnson line of 1865 and MacDonald-MacArthur line. MacDonald-MacArthur line in 1890s. So now you will have to know only Johnson line and MacDonald line. If you want to know in more details with respect to India-China border dispute, where I have discussed from the start of the issue, from the historical facts of 1865 to 2020, you can watch my another video available on our channel, on our YouTube channel. Just you will have to search Indo-China dispute. Okay, so now coming to this point, this Johnson line in 1865 has put the Aksai Chin into the region of India. Aksai Chin into region of India. And at that time, what happened is Xinjiang region was not under the control of China. But after 20 years or 25 years, China has conquered the Xinjiang region and have demanded that new lines should be redrawn. And to fulfill their demand, the Britishers have constituted the MacDonald Commission, and this MacDonald-MacArthur have redrawn the boundary and put Aksai Chin into the China. Now, Britishers have never used this MacDonald-MacArthur line, and they have never updated this on the map. So, in 1947, India claims that the border with respect to China lies from north of Karakoram, and China says that Aksai Chin is our part because MacDonald-MacArthur line says so. So this is a perception. Okay. Now we will look into the eastern border. What happened in the eastern border? We will have to understand the conference, that is Simla Conference of 1914. In Simla Conference, Tibet, China and British India came together for boundary dispute or for redrawing of the boundary in the eastern region. But the case was that China said that Tibet cannot sign the agreement with British India because Tibet does not have its own sovereignty and it is within the sovereignty of China. Okay, so therefore the Britishers have not used this map of Simla Conference or McMahon line till 1938. After 1938, they have started using this McMahon line on their map. So again they say that China says that Tibet is a part of the last king ruler of 1912 of China. So Tibet is a part of India. It is their perception, and they say so that how the Tibet can sign the agreement with British India when China is the supreme sovereign power. This is a matter of perception. Okay. After that, you should highlight the border skirmishes between India and China going into the history. First, you can talk about 1962 war. Then you can talk about 1967 Nathula and Chola classes. Then you can talk about Daulat Beg Oldie Ridge scrims in 2013. Then you can talk about the recent issue at Galwan Valley, Nakula Valley in Sikkim, Pangong Lake. Just you will have to give this timeline like this so that it gives an understanding that in the light of historical incidents, you are describing the things and also steps taken by both the countries. So therefore, this must be highlighted in your answer in detail. And for more detailed analysis, go and watch my video separately on Indo-China dispute. Okay. Now, the second part or third part of the question is with respect to steps taken by the government. But I have told you that you can also say that no, it is not less of a strategic calculation now. In the 21st century, it is more of a strategic calculation, and just the perception or the understanding of the border is giving a strength to calculate the strategic angle between India and China. You can say like that. But for that, why you are telling that this is a strategic calculation? Then you will have to go into the philosophy of the international relation which is happening between India and China. A strategic calculation here you can talk about that what China wants. China wants to be the regional hegemon and basically to challenge the hegemony of USA ultimately. But for that, it will have to become regional hegemon, and the only obstacle in the path of regional hegemon is India. Then you can also talk about South China Sea dispute, and then you can relate that China is exerting pressure on India, and it will give him advantage with the countries in the South China Sea. साउथ चाइना सी की छोटी कंट्रीज जो है, फिलीपींस है, तुम्हारी मलेशिया है और वियतनाम है, इंडोनेशिया है, जिनके जिनके साथ उसका प्रॉब्लम है, वो लोग को ये लगेगा कि अरे इसने तो इंडिया को प्रेशर कर दिया, हमें क्या, हम कौन है. तो बेसिकली इट विल गिव एन एडवांटेज इन द साउथ चाइना डिस्प्यूट. देन we all know about the BRI and CPEC, that India does not or is not the part of BRI and considers CPEC as illegitimate and against the territorial integrity of the country. So you can say yes, it was the perception, it is the perception, but we cannot deny that it is more of a strategic calculation nowadays. Then you can also talk about the Doklam, and then you can say that how Doklam was a strategic calculation to cut the India from the chicken corridor. So these are the things which you can give in your answer, and it will give an understanding to the examiner that you have not just memorized the things, but you analyze the things. Okay. After that, you will have to give the steps taken by the government in your answer. So majorly, there are three different steps taken by the government, first in 1993, then in 2005, then in 2013. In 1993, there was an agreement on maintaining peace and tranquility. Maintaining peace and tranquility. In 2005, the agreement was guiding principles and political parameters. In 2013, the agreement is Border Defense Cooperation Agreement. Now, this agreement says that both the party will reduce the troops level. Okay? And both the parties will ensure that air intrusions across the LAC should not happen. Understood? Now, guiding principles and political parameters is basically first to define the guidelines and framework that how the border dispute can be solved, and then complete the border demarcation, keeping in mind the interest of demarcation, keeping in mind the interest of the people living across the border and in the light of Panchsheel. Then in 2013, Border Defense Cooperation Agreement we have, and according to this Border Defense Cooperation Agreement, both the sides will not use military capability, and they will have to give information with respect to deployment of aircraft and mines. For example, India is sending the mines, India is sending the anti-craft, aircraft, then they will have to give information to Chinese side and vice versa. And the next element of this border defense cooperation agreement, that jointly both the parties or both the country will jointly combat smuggling of arms. Okay, so these are the things which are, you can say, in the terms of border defense cooperation agreement, and these are the steps taken by the government with respect to settlement of the border dispute. Okay, now after that, you can also use either in the introduction or in the conclusion that Indo-China relation is defined by 3C, that is competition, cooperation and conflict. Okay, competition, cooperation and conflict. Therefore, for the 21st century, if we want the 21st century is an Asian century, then we should not make Asia as a theater of conflict but a theater of cooperation. This can be used in your conclusion. Understood? I hope that you are enjoying that how to address the question, where to focus, what content is required. First of all, most of the students, 30 to 40 messages I am getting on a daily basis, that how sir, how we can increase the content with respect to particular topic. So for you, I can just tell you that the question which have been discussed in our test series, paper 2, paper 3, paper 4, we will give you complete content. You don't need to refer any source except this. But for another issue which will not be dealt by us before prelims, but we will obviously complete all the important current affairs till your mains examination. The content will be given by us also, and you can also increase your content by referring to any magazine available in the market. Okay, you can refer to Vision, you can refer to Insight, and you can have the list of the topics, and you can jot down the important points from there. Understood? So now this is the